Welcome to the place where we are laying the foundation of the future. Welcome to SPK Jain Futuristic Academy. Jain Futuristic Academy is an alternative experiential school set in the mainstream. Nestled in a 2-acre campus with exceptional learning and co-curricular facilities that will set the benchmark for many others. Let us take you on a quick walkthrough of our campus. Our sports infrastructure complement and parallel our high-quality classroom instruction. We have paid attention in providing exceptional sporting and recreational infrastructure. Children can play, train and compete under the guidance of trained professionals. Our campus is welcoming and safe with a blend of nature and good architecture, which makes it unique and special. Right from the entrance, we have exhibition spaces on one side and the library on the other side, setting the tone for learning. These spaces will be hosting events on a regular basis. We are a kindergarten to grade 12 IGCSE and ICSE school. The school is an initiative of Sri Shwetambar Stharakvasi Jain Sabha. A great foundation is essential. Our unique daycare and pre-primary learning environments will lay a strong foundation for developing these necessary skills. Our environments are equipped with innovative, age-appropriate and child-friendly learning material and furniture. Our unique curriculum promotes free expression, discovery and development of individual talents and promotes independence. All our classrooms are spacious, flexible and have the ability to keep up with the changing times. Our classrooms are set up in a 5-room cluster along with a staff and learning resource center. At the school, we believe it's important to nurture imagination. Our well-equipped library will help our students to read, learn and grow. Our spacious and well-designed cafeteria will provide hygienic, good quality, nutritious meals. We have an in-house infirmary and a doctor's consultation room furnished with a qualified team and first aid equipment to manage issues that may occur at school. Our Learning Resource Center provides students and teachers access to some of the best facilities, be it in the form of science labs, makerspace or discovery zones. At our dance and music studio, students practice and train in a wide range of music and dance forms from different cultures and genres. Our computer lab serves as a home for collaboration and has multifaceted learning capabilities. The audiovisual room is professionally designed and installed with the latest technology. JFA also accommodates a few art studios as well. Our multi-purpose hall and the auditorium provide excellent spaces for events and indoor sports. plethora of other indoor sporting areas are also available. GFA is a unique school where learning is imbibed in a free-spirited environment that nurtures creativity, innovation and enthusiasm. SPKGM Futuristic Academy, a futuristic experiential school. Welcome to the place where we are laying the foundation of the future. Welcome to SPKGM Futuristic Academy. GEM Futuristic Academy is an alternative, experiential school set in the mainstream. Nestled in a 2-acre campus with exceptional learning and co-curricular facilities that will set the benchmark for many others. Let us take you on a quick walkthrough of our campus. Our sports infrastructure complement and parallel our high-quality classroom instruction. We have paid attention in providing exceptional sporting and recreational infrastructure. A place where children can play, train and compete under the guidance of trained professionals. Our campus is welcoming and safe, with a blend of nature and good architecture, which makes it unique and special. Right from the entrance, we have exhibition spaces on one side and the library on the other side, setting the tone for learning. These spaces will be hosting events on a regular basis. We are a kindergarten to grade 12 IGCSE and ICSE school. The school is an initiative of Sri Shwetambar Sthanakvasi Jain Sabha. A great foundation is essential. Our unique daycare and pre-primary learning environments will lay a strong foundation for developing these necessary skills. All the guests are requested to take your seat. We will start our event shortly. Namaste. On behalf of Academy, I extend a warm welcome to all our esteemed dignitaries and guests who have taken.
A special welcome to Dr. Sugata Mitra, the world-renowned educational theorist who is present here among us today. It's our honor and privilege to have you here, sir. Without further ado, I would like to take the day's proceedings ahead with the lighting of the lamp. The flame of the lamp signifies knowledge, the journey from darkness to light, and resonates with our motto, Gyan, Darshan, Charitra. May I please invite our special guest, Dr. Sugata Mitra, Shri Chardharmal Kankaria ji, Shri Lalit Kankaria ji, Shri Jaideep Patwa ji, Shri Darshan Mutha ji, and our Honorable Principal, Srimati Shatabdi Bhattacharya ji, for lighting the lamp. It's indeed an auspicious moment. Thank you all. I would now like to invite our Honorable Principal Ma'am, Srimati Shatabdi Bhattacharya to address the August gathering.
Very good afternoon to one and all present here. I don't know, I'm spellbound. Lots of words. With so to have the man just. I remember reading about his revolutionary work about 10 years back maybe, yes, The Hole in the Wall. And trust me, if you would believe me, I made a silent prayer on that day. I wish I could on this. I wish I could make such experiments come true. And I'm one of the few lucky ones whose words God heard. So today I'm at SPK Jain Futuristic Academy, a school that believes that a child learns on his or her own, a school which believes that the need of the hour is to create independent learners, the school that every child has something to offer to the society. And today, while I'm taking this podium, and while my voice is almost to the verge of breaking, I'm so proud I am leading the school. This school is a baby. We've just started with the school. The new session would begin in April. That's why this occasion is so important. It has to be blessed, has to be guided. So today I have invited all my colleagues, the senior educationists of this city,
Kankaria ji, to address all of us. Shri Kankaria ji is the president of the SS Jain Sabha. Being a visionary and an active contributor, even at the age of 95 years, he continues to remain the guiding force behind the school. Please welcome Shri Chardharmal Kankaria.
नमस्कार। प्रसिद्ध शिक्षाविद डॉक्टर सुगाता मित्रा साहब, स्कूल की प्रिंसिपल साहब, उपस्थित सभी विभिन्न स्कूलों से पधारे हुए प्रिंसिपल, शिक्षक, शिक्षिकाएं, आप सबका हार्दिक स्वागत। श्वेतंबर स्थानवासी जैन सभा के अंतर्गत ये स्कूल निर्मित में थोड़ी सी आपको दे देना चाहता हूँ। स्वतंत्र यूनिवर्सिटी जैन सभा एक सक्रिय सामाजिक संस्था है। उनकी 4 स्कूलें कलकत्ते में चल रही है। ये 5 करीबन 2500 स्टूडेंट हैं और मुझे कहते हुए खुशी है कि लगभग 500 स्टूडेंट 99 बहुत रिजनेबल फीस में वहाँ पर पढ़ाई होती है। जगह बहुत कम है, 18 कट्टा में जब स्कूल बनी हुई है और 2 शिफ्ट में वो स्कूल चलती है और बड़े बाजार की सबसे अच्छी स्कूलों में 2 स्कूल है हमारी, श्री जैन विद्यालय बॉयज और जैन विद्यालय गर्ल्स दी जाती है। 90% लड़के फर्स्ट डिवीजन में पास होती है। करीबन 450 लड़के हर साल हायर सेकेंडरी की परीक्षा देती है। इसी ढंग से बॉयज स्कूल में 2100 स्टूडेंट है और उसका भी रिजल्ट बहुत अच्छा है। एक स्कूल जगत दल वो 8वीं तक रिकॉग्नाइज है और वो स्कूल में भी 100% रिजल्ट है, अच्छी चल रही है। हावड़ा में श्री जैन हॉस्पिटल इसी संस्था द्वारा स्थापित है और मुझे कहते हुए खुशी हो रही है कि आजकल कलकत्ते के सबसे अच्छे हॉस्पिटल में उसका नाम आ रहा है। करीबन 135 बेड का हॉस्पिटल प्राय फुल रहता है और सबसे बड़ी बात है कि नेक्स्ट ईयर उसी हॉस्पिटल के पीछे एक कैंसर हॉस्पिटल बन रहा है। उसका नक्शा छोड़ दिया गया है। वो टाटा अंबानी के साथ टेक्निकल कोलैबोरेशन में वो हॉस्पिटल आ रहा है। बिल्डिंग और जमीन हम लोग बना के देंगे, लेकिन इक्विपमेंट सारे टाटा और वो लोग देंगे और सुपरविजन और टेक्निकल नो हाउ जानकारी उनकी रहेगी। मेरा ख्याल है 24 के अंदर वो हॉस्पिटल आकर के बंगाल की जनता की सेवा में आ जाएगा। इसी ढंग से ये सोसाइटी और भी कुछ काम करती रहती है। ये स्कूल बन गई, ये आपके सामने है। करीबन 1.25 लाख स्क्वायर फीट फुल्ली एयर कंडीशन ये स्कूल बनाई है और स्कूल में फंक्शन था। विलेज की 75 स्कूलों से स्टूडेंट आए थे। 1540 स्टूडेंट को टेक्स्ट बुक दी गई थी और 10 स्कूलों को 5-5 करके कंप्यूटर दिए गए थे। ये हर साल हमारा होता है और करीबन 60 पंखे दिए गए जिन स्कूलों में। बड़ा आश्चर्य होता है गवर्नमेंट के स्कूलों में जब देखते हैं कि हमारा सैलरी तो महीने की 8 लाख भेज देते हैं, लेकिन 1 लाख के कंप्यूटर नहीं लगा पाते हैं। हम लोग अपनी तरफ से जैसा होता है हर साल 8-10 स्कूलों में कंप्यूटर सेंटर स्थापित करते हैं, उनको पंखा देते हैं और भी उनको सहयोग जो चाहिए वो देते हैं। हर महीने 250 परिवार को राशन वितरित होता है। काशीपुर में हमारे 3 कॉलेज है इसी सोसाइटी के। एक साइंस और कॉमर्स कॉलेज है जिसमें करीबन 3000 स्टूडेंट हैं। एक बीएड कॉलेज है जिसमें 200 स्टूडेंट हैं। एक डेंटल कॉलेज है उसमें 400 स्टूडेंट हैं और काफी अच्छे ढंग से वो सारे कॉलेज चल रहे हैं और मुझे उम्मीद है कि ये इंस्टीट्यूशन भी हमारा कलकत्ते का ही नहीं इंडिया का सबसे अच्छा इंस्टीट्यूशन बने, ऐसा है। और आज मित्रा साहब जैसे प्रसिद्ध शिक्षाविद आए हैं और हमें एडवाइस देंगे, हम लोग उस ढंग से काम करेंगे। मैं अपनी ओर से और स्वतंत्र की और इस विद्यालय की ओर से उपस्थित सभी का हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूँ। नमस्कार, जय हिंद।
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable words. Finally, we have arrived at that moment for which we all have been waiting eagerly for. A leading proponent of minimally invasive education, a renowned educational theorist, and a motivator, Sugata Mitra has rendered a new meaning to the education with his approaches. Moving on, may I please request Shri Shraddharmal Kankaria ji once more, Shri Lalit Kankaria ji and Shri Jaideep Patwa ji to felicitate Dr. Mitra and extend our heartfelt gratitude for being here with us. Huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Sir. You want to come in? Yes, sir. No.
Thank you all.
Okay, sorry.
Put your hands together to invite Dr. Mitra on stage to enlighten all of us with his keynote address, Self Organized Learning.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me here. The only place in the world where my name is pronounced properly. I'm just, yeah. Sorry, Mr. My old teaching habits. I stop talking as soon as somebody gets up. So, all right. What I'm going to try to do is to take you over almost 20-something years of the changes that have happened and what they mean. Okay, now you might say, well, how is that going to help us? 23 have been, as you all know, very, very large changes. What do these changes mean for children? Particularly for the children who you are going to prepare for the next 30 years. Okay. I don't know how courageous you are, but if I had to ask you, what can you tell me about 2053? I think you will say nothing. That's the big difference, isn't it? In 1950, we had asked a teacher, what do you think about 1970, 20 years from now? She would have said, well, this could have happened, that could have, you would have made a guess. In 2023, if I ask you 30 years from now, you'll say, sorry, I can't even guess. What should a teacher do under those circumstances? So let's see if I can get you there. But first of all, well, first let me ask you, can you hear me clearly right at the back? Last row? Okay, so you're not going to do WhatsApp, right? Okay. Should I use a bigger? Okay. So, the title of this talk, as you can see, is one which I started to talk about 5 years ago. And the title was received very badly everywhere, particularly in Britain. They said, what do you mean? School is all about knowing. So what does this title mean when you say the end of knowing? It's rubbish. That was 5 years ago. Just before COVID, by 2019, 2020, they began to say, what was that thing you were saying about end of knowing? Can you just repeat that? By 2023, I get invited to many schools to say, tell us about the end of knowing. So let me tell you that story. Can you just go ahead? Okay, I'll start from many years ago, from a very small experiment. The experiment was actually quite simple. I was in Delhi at that time. This must have been around 2004 or 5. I asked 2 of my colleagues to rent a car and drive out of Delhi towards the northeast, where the Himalayas just begin. So they go from urban to increasingly rural and more rural. And I told them, every time you find a school, particularly primary school, you stop, give them a standardized test for English, mathematics and science. Total the scores, find out the distance from Delhi and bring that data back. So they brought it back. Okay, if you go to the next slide. On the left-hand side, you'll see what they brought back. Can you guys see right from the back row? I'm covering a part of the screen. Can you more or less see it? Okay. Feel free to stand up if you need to. Okay. Better. Yeah, it's important to see it. That's the one. Okay. So what it shows is that as you go further and further away from Delhi, okay, you can sit now. If you go further and further away from Delhi, the total score keeps coming down. Okay. So I said, all right, now ask the teachers in each of those schools one question. Would you like to work somewhere else? So in Delhi and in the plush suburbs of Delhi, like Gurgaon and so on, they said, no, we're fine, good high standard of living, good healthcare, good education, we're okay. Have a good salary and so on. About 50 kilometers away, they said, we're all right. Now I'm talking about Meerut, Ghaziabad, a little bit further. We're all right, but it would have been nice if we could be a little closer to Delhi, because it's a long drive just to go to a big supermarket or a mall or something like that. They said, sir, it's okay here, but I am trying to look for a job in Delhi. Okay, because, I have little children, I want them to have a good life, and so on and so forth. At 200 kilometers away from Delhi, the teachers said, in England, I thought that, well, if I did a similar experiment in England, I won't get the same data. Because in England, rural England is very pretty, very comfortable, everything. So, there are teachers who would prefer to live in a rural area than in an urban area. So I won't get that. So I did that measurement and found, as I had expected, that there was no such relationship. But the GCSE scores, their equivalent of CBSE, the GCSE scores for different schools were different. Some were good, some were bad. So what explains that? I found another parameter. It's a parameter called the density of council housing. Council housing is the equivalent of what you would probably call municipal housing, low-cost housing for poorer people. Some areas have lots of such houses, little flats like pigeonholes. and some areas have less of them. So there's a factor, there's a number called the density of housing. When CSE results against the density of council housing, I got the same curve that I got in Delhi. So I said, well, so this has got nothing to do with distance. This has to do with something else. So I asked the teachers, in the high council housing density areas, would you like to work somewhere else? And I said, why? They said, so these are dangerous areas. There's, drug. I can't walk out properly safely at night. I have little children. I have to worry about their safety. I would like to move to an area where there isn't such a high density of council housing. So then I realized that the word remoteness doesn't necessarily mean geographical distance. It can be social remoteness, religious remoteness, it can be all kinds of remoteness. Wherever you have remoteness, good teachers and the results drop. Very ironic. So all the children who need the good teachers, they're great. But you can't blame the teachers because teachers are human beings. They also want a good standard of living and so on. It was an insoluble problem. So what shall we do? And I'm sure that you have the same problem right here. Okay, you just have to see the schools as you go further and further away to be able to tell that difference. So what shall we do? Is there anything that works exactly the same way, no matter how remote an area is? Well, you might be able to guess, computers work the same way. Okay, they don't want to migrate anywhere. Okay, so could there be an answer in that? I decided to check. Okay, back to Delhi in 1999. In 1999, for those of you who remember 1999, personal computers had just come in. And they were very expensive. 50,000 rupees in those days, 25 years ago. So only rich people could afford them. So I looked around and I found that some of my richer friends had bought personal computers at home. And they all started to say one thing which was very interesting. They said, my little girl, I think she's gifted. So I said, oh, why is that? So, the other day I was looking for a file on my computer, and this girl, whom I had told I told my daughter, don't touch the computer. But she said, why don't you type dir/w/p, which is old DOS command, you know that, and you'll see it in pages. And I turned to my daughters, how do you know that? And she said, well, you did that yesterday, you've forgotten about it. So I think she's gifted. And then there were many such stories. My little boy is only 8 years old, and he was playing music on the computer. In those days it was considered very difficult. He was playing music on the computer. I think he's gifted. So then I thought, there's something very interesting is happening to society. The children of rich people, gifted. that can't be true. So what's going wrong? And I said, well, it's very simple. The children who have access are doing all these interesting things. The ones who don't are not. It's a question of access. Okay? If it's a question of access, right outside my office, I was with NIIT in those days, right outside my office in Kalkaji in Delhi, there's an urban slum. There's lots of children and they don't do anything. They're playing cricket and this and that. So I said, what will happen if I give them access to a computer? And everybody said, nothing will happen. They don't know any English, never seen any computer, they don't know what the internet is. What do you expect will happen? Somebody has to teach them what to do. And besides, how will you give them a computer? They will just steal it. So I said, okay, let me look at a way to solve that, an engineering way to solve that. I copied what the banks were doing, ATMs. So there's, in the boundary wall of the slum, I made a hole, put the computer from the back, covered it with a sheet of glass, put a touchpad on the wall, also just facing outwards, and 3 feet off the ground, so that adults would have to stoop very low to see it. I turned it on with Windows, whatever Windows was there in those days, an internet connection, the best I could get at that time. Nobody would allow me to put the internet into that computer. It's a slum. That's a slum. So I said, yeah, I know it's a slum. But anyway, so in the end, I had to steal it. What I did was I took a T-junction Ethernet and took it off the office and put it into that machine. So now it had the internet. I turned it on in 1999, and as you might imagine, in a slum, surrounded by children, lots and lots of them. But they came to about 1 foot of the computer, and go back. Yeah, I'll tell you when you do it. Let's see, what will I do? I'll do this. That means forward. And I'll do that, it means back. Okay. So, they would come to 1 foot of the computer and then they'll just stop like that. Okay. And not touch it. And just staring at it. And I was there saying, oh, this is going wrong. What's happening? They're not doing anything. So I couldn't figure out what to do. I said, you can touch the computer because it's on your side of the wall. They stood there, just looking at me. Then I understood something very quickly. Thank God I did. I understood something about education. If you have a guy in a tie standing and staring down at you, you don't do anything. That's the safest bet. Okay. So then I realized they are not touching the computer, not because of the computer, but because of me. So I turned around and walked off. As soon as I walked off, I heard this huge babble of the noises of children. Okay. An hour or two later, a colleague of mine came in looking very excited and said, how did you do it? So I said, do what? He said, when did you teach them? I said, teach them what? I said, what are they doing? Well, they're browsing and they're teaching each other how to browse. So how did you teach them so quickly about the touchpad and clicks and double clicks? And they seem to know all of that. I said, I didn't. Nobody believed me. The Times of India landed up same evening. And I still remember it made the headlines on the next day. Front page of the Times of India, it said, Rajinder ban gaya netizen. Okay. Rajinder was an 8-year-old boy. So they too asked me this question, who is teaching them? And I said, nobody. And they said, hey, this private sector company, this is just telling lies. You must have taught them in the evening and showing off during the daytime, saying, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. Well, nothing happened. So I said, okay, now this is a very interesting experiment, but nothing is going to happen because nobody believes me. Luckily, something absolutely incredible happened. I got a phone call from the World Bank saying that the president of the World Bank, who is in Delhi for a visit, has heard of your experiment and would like to come and see it for himself. So I said, President of the World Bank, Mr. Wolfenson in those days. So Wolfenson came along to Kalkaji, to the slum. And I had to decide now what should I explain to him. I decided to do nothing. There was Wolfenson, there was I, a hole in the wall about 10 or 15 meters away. I went out to Wolfenson. I said, it's over there. You go. And he looked at me. I said, yeah, go. They're not going to eat you. So he went. And he stooped on his haunches and was there for almost 15 minutes talking to the children. I don't know what they talked about. When he got up, he came back to me, put his hand on my shoulder and said, how much? So I said, how much for what? He said, you have to show that this thing works all over the world. What you have done here. How much? So to cut the long story short, I got $1.6 million to do one of what's now considered one of the biggest experiments in children's education without teachers and without a curriculum. It took almost 5 years to do that. But, and I did it, all across the length and breadth of India, into Cambodia, South Africa, several other African countries. And I'll tell you about that in a moment. But what you'll see now is some video. Now these videos are all taken by me using, remember, 1999's cameras. So you'll see that flicker and all of that. But it will show you, it will give you a feeling for what was going on. The guy on the right, his name is Rajinder. He was 8 years old. And well, he wasn't gifted, actually, all of them are like that. To his left is a student, 6, and he was teaching her how to browse. This is in Rajasthan. South India. So, everywhere, the same behavior. And I started measuring it. I won't go into what I measured. We made a test, basically measuring computer literacy over time. And if you go to the next one, that's what we got. Okay. Straight upward curve. You're all teachers here. So if you take any subject that you're teaching, if you were to test the children on that subject every week, then as you teach, you'll get a graph like this. When I saw that graph, I understood that question to which I would not have given an answer. Who is teaching them? How are you getting a teacher's graph without a teacher? I didn't know. I had no idea. Alright, let's go to the next one. But I published everything. Okay. Early in the game, this is very important by the way for you guys. If you do something new, we hold back, we just talk to each other. Publish it in peer-reviewed international journals. They'll reject you 15 times, 20 times, doesn't matter. Keep at it until they publish it. Because once you publish it, you're rubber stamped. Okay, then came the next question. Next question was, okay, so they are teaching them how to use a computer by themselves. What else can they teach themselves? I said, I don't know. Let's try it. How far can it go? So I said, all right, let me try an experiment that is designed to fail. I went to a village called Kali Kuppam near Pondicherry. The village had only one school which had been destroyed in the tsunami, the Asian tsunami of 2004. The children were all 12-year-old Tamil-speaking children. I built a hole-in-the-wall computer for them. And into that computer, I downloaded material on DNA replication, genetics. University level DNA replication downloaded into the computer. So the children, they knew me by then, so they asked me, what is that? I said, well, is it a new game? I said, no, it's not a game, but it's something very interesting. They said, it looks like chemistry. I said, yes, it looks like chemistry, but still it is very interesting. Then I did a trick, an important trick, okay? I told them, you're not going to understand a word of this. It's difficult, it's chemistry, and it's in English. And I'm going. And I left. If you leave 12-year-olds with this statement, you'll never be able to understand this. They will do nothing else except to keep trying. When I came back after 3 months, I did pre and post testing. They had gone from 0 to 30%. University level DNA replication, biotechnology, okay? 30%. In a language they don't know, English. Using a machine they don't know, the computer. Okay, so I said, now what do I do? But 30% is a fail. So what have I achieved and how do I get them to pass? So I said, okay, I'm never going to get a trained biotechnology teacher to come to Kalikuppam. What else can I do? So I decided to find out who is an adult that the children are friendly with. Turned out to be a local accountant, a young woman who works for a NGO nearby. And I told that girl, Rekha, her name was, Rekha Peter. I said, Rekha, can you teach them some biotechnology? And she said, no, absolutely not. I didn't even have science in school. So I said, no, never mind. What you have to do is just stand behind them and whatever they do, just say, that's terrific, wonderful. Okay, just explain it to me. She did that for 2 more months. Results went to 60%. I was measuring with a control school, elite upper class control school in Delhi, and the children in Kalikuppam had caught up. Then I knew that I was onto something really big. But what is it? I still didn't know. So somewhere along the line in 2008, I wrote this statement in a lecture. I said, groups of children can learn to use the computers and the internet to learn anything by themselves. It was met, as you might imagine, with absolute horror by teachers saying, what kind of nonsense is this? Anything? I said, well, you tell me. I tried biotechnology. What else should I try? So, I still remember one of the challenges a math teacher told me. Can they learn to solve equations? I said, let's try. This was in a school in England. I said, let's try. So I went to a group of children who had not yet started algebra. And I wrote a quadratic equation on the blackboard. Some 3x squared plus 2x plus something equal to 0. And the children sort of looked at it and said, why have you mixed up letters and numbers? So I said, I don't know, that's how it is. And why is the 2 written on top of the x and not next to the x? I don't know. I don't know any of this, okay? And I tried my old trick, which was, I doubt if you'll be able to figure it out for yourself. I gave them about 30-40 minutes. A huge discussion started off. They all had the internet, of course, that's part of the whole game. Huge amount of discussion, and I kept hearing the word Damascus. I said, Damascus? So what's going on? So at the end of 30 minutes, I said, okay, we've got to stop now. Tell me, what have you found? And they said, this thing you've written on the blackboard, it's called algebra. It was invented somewhere in the East and then traveled up to Damascus. And wars were fought over it. 8-10-year-olds, they like this blood and thunder. So wars were fought, sir, over this algebra. So I said, okay, that's fine. But then, I said, well, you didn't give us much time. That's all we found out. So I said, okay, but I asked you, how much is X? And it had some answer, 7 or something like that. So one of the children very casually said, 7, of course, he said. I said, oh, Was it that we found out in the first 5 minutes, but after that they're massacres. Okay, so that ended the session. The parents were watching. And the parents kept asking me the same thing. How is this happening? What's going on? And then just before I left the room was my utter surprise. There was a little fellow there who said, "Sir?" I said, "Yes." "It has two answers, sir," he said. 7 is only one of them. Gosh. So that was how I learned about what this was. We gave it a name in England. The teachers called it Self Organized Learning Environments, or SOLE, S-O-L-E. Self-organized because, if remember Kali Kuppam, remember Kalkaji, I never told them anything. So how they should work, who they should work with, nothing at all. And they did all that by themselves. So self-organized. Learning environment because obviously they were learning. In England, one of the differences between England and here, I guess, is that, well, maybe I'm being unfair, but the thing is, I got a call from the government, local government in Newcastle, where I was doing this work, and they said, come and tell us what's this thing. So I told them, and they said, that's remarkable. We have a terrible shortage of teachers. So I said, well, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying this will solve that problem. I'm just telling you that groups of children can learn things by themselves using the internet. They noted all of that down. One of the very few governments in the world that ever did. Okay. If you go to the next one.
If you do it, then you lose.
It started spreading.
Okay, well, I'll explain. We'll give an example.
This is Hyderabad.
We'll start now.
Okay, so your
And he wants to get richer. And so everyone will go in both.
Original art covers a wide medium, including painting on leaves, wood,
Challenge this afternoon. You know how you're all really, really good at answering hard questions, but you haven't put your fingers in it?
It handles physical motion when walking, talking, standing, and sitting. It likes to think.
So it traveled everywhere. For some reason, it started from down bottom of Australia. Melbourne schools started picking it up. It was all caused by lectures like this. Okay, I would go and describe to them some experiments. The teachers would pick it up. They would start trying, and then they would start sending me the results. From southern Australia, it spread into Latin America, Argentina, Chile, Mexico, and then finally up into the United States. So, teachers everywhere said it works. But they had a problem. If you go to the next one. I published everything. Okay. By the way, this presentation is in your school computer, so if you want the actual paper headings, I shall give it to you. Okay, keep going. So, what do you need? Groups of 4 to 6 children. 1 computer per group. Okay, very important. Don't give them too many computers. Remember, hole in the wall? 1 child and 300 children and 1 computer. So don't give them too many computers. Unrestricted broadband. Okay. Open broadband. Now you might say, oh, what do you mean? How can we do that? If the screen is big, it doesn't matter. If people get scared, parents particularly, what will happen, my child, might look up inappropriate material, this and that. But think of something. If the internet was on a screen which was the same size as the TV in your living room, and if it was kept in the living room, would you ever see anything wrong? It's got to do with the size of the screen. Okay? It's as simple as that. I found this out from the hole in the wall because those things were in the street and nothing would ever go wrong. The Chief Minister of Delhi in those days, Sheila Dikshit, she called me and everything is fine, but what about, this inappropriate access? And I said, ma'am, but there isn't any. I checked the history of the computers, never. It was very simple. If you're on the street working on a computer, your mother might be walking behind you, your uncle might be. So who's going to do inappropriate behavior? And a heterogeneous mix of boys and girls. Okay? That stops that whole problem completely. So, unrestricted broadband, an interesting question. It has to interest them. You decide how to generate that interest. And don't start by saying this is very interesting. Okay. That doesn't work. Okay. I'll give you an example. Okay. A teacher in England said, I've got a topic today which is the most boring topic on the planet. You tell me how your method will work. I said, okay, what is this topic? She said, gum health. Okay. Now you tell me how to make gum health interesting. So I walked into a class full of 7-year-olds. So I said, anybody lost a tooth? So lots of hands went up. There's 7. 1 tooth gone, 1 tooth gone. I said, what will happen? Lost your tooth? Oh, it will grow back. I said, oh, how crazy. Why was it there in the first place if it's going to fall off and then grow back? Do you know? They said. I said, no, I don't know. Then what happens after that? What do you mean? I said, what happens as you grow older? Do they fall off again? No, they remain. Oh, yes, granny. Yes, they fall off again. I said, okay, they fall off again. And so no problem because they grow back again. No, they don't grow back again. So I said, that is really strange. You grow some teeth, then by age 7 they start falling off, then they grow back, then they don't fall off for many decades, then they fall off, and they don't grow back again. What is this? You find out. Okay. 35, 40 minutes later, we had gum health. Okay. All right. And when children find out, then you don't have to make it interesting for them. I walk in back after the 30 minutes and all the hands are up. What happened? Sir, have you heard of gum health? I said, no, what is that? Gum health, sir, is very important, otherwise the teeth will fall off. Anyway, so, interesting questions. If you don't have somebody to do interesting questions, your school like this doesn't have that problem, but in a rural school you might, then beam in a teacher over WhatsApp, over Skype. You guys have schools in Howrah, so on and so forth. What happens if the history teacher is absent one day? You don't need to, just say, I need a substitute. Just beam your history teacher in from here. E-mediation if needed. Discussion, allowed. Everything is allowed. Changing of groups, allowed. Watching over groups, this they take a long time to understand. That you can walk, you can go and see what other groups are doing, and then come back to your own group and say, well, we are idiots. Look at them. So the English children, they're very proper. So I say, English children, you mean cheating? I said, cheating I said, this is not called cheating. It's called referencing. Every good scientist does referencing, but you have to only remember one thing. If you've taken something from her screen, then while presenting, you should say, I got this from her. That's all. You have to acknowledge it. Then you're okay. All right, so they understood that. And finally, dear teachers, leave them. This is Calcutta, so I'll say leave them alone. In England, I say leave them bloody alone. Okay, next one. So I started spreading that method out to more grown-up people in the university, my students, the internet. You don't have it in school. Instead, you teach them how steam engines work. Does that make sense? So we have to have a subject called the internet. Now I'm in luck here, because is there a textbook? No. Will there ever be one? No. It changes every day. Is there a teacher? No. Will there ever be a teacher? No. They'll be working for Google and Microsoft, not here. So we finally got a subject which has to be taught. Children have to learn it, but there cannot be a textbook, and there cannot be a teacher, and there cannot be a curriculum. There's only one way, by themselves. It will include things like network, self-organization, emergent phenomenon, spontaneous order. These are beautiful topics once you get into this. And the physics of uncertainty. Go ahead. I have a paper which has the entire curriculum. The teacher training steps, etc., how to do that. Go ahead. Last slide. Whew. You should congratulate me. Anyway, what's the future of educational philosophy? And finally, after talking about all this 21st century stuff, I had to put Socrates at the back. Okay, go ahead. You need to know what you need to know, just in time and not just in case. You know the answer to the question, ma'am, why are you teaching me trigonometry? Just in case, if you're lost on a ship in the Pacific Ocean, and if you have only a theodolite, then you will need trigonometry and your logarithm tables. Okay? For heaven's sake, nobody is going to be lost in a ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Even if they do, they'll have a phone with them. Okay? So, just in time, not just in case. The ability to quickly pick up something new. Learning to anticipate the future. How do you do that? Normally we do it through projection. Number of cars sold last year, 25 million. This year, so far, 35 million. Therefore, next year, 45 million. The world doesn't move like that anymore. It moves like that. Okay? So what do? How much will a car cost in 2053? You know what the answer is? There might not be any cars. Okay? So, you have to project to that. How do you do that? And I thought we were stuck. Okay, projection and prediction doesn't work. What works? Well, there are two things in the brain which we don't use. Nature doesn't put anything there if it's not required. Prophecy and fantasy. Why are they there? Are you encouraging the children to pull that out? Because that is what they will need in their bag of tricks to predict what's going to happen. Prophecy and fantasy. Imagination will become the key tool for creativity. To imagine. Okay? So, Lewis Carroll, Avol Tavol. Now you understand how far ahead those guys were. And finally, the purpose of education is to enable people to live happy, healthy, and useful lives. Nothing else. Nothing else matters. If you keep that in mind, I guess we might actually head towards 2053 with a little more confidence. Thanks. Okay, so you can, if you have a question, if you have a comment, suggestion, anything. As you know, everything is allowed, including cheating. Okay, finally, right there at the back. Okay. Rajendra Pawar. Oh, Rajinder. Yeah, well, that's actually a very good and a very pathetic question. No, I'll tell you why. It won't make you feel happy at all. Rajendra runs a tea stall, okay, about a few yards away from the original hole in the wall. The original hole in the wall was closed by the Delhi municipality in order to build a parking lot. Okay, I met Rajendra. He's now 20 something. And I said, sir, कहाँ से सीखूंगा? Engineer बनना था. वो computer ही तो लेके चला गया. So anyway, but the one little glimmer of hope in there is that while he does run that tea shop, everybody in the locality comes to Rajendra when they want their cell phones and laptops fixed. Okay. Yes, please.
Good evening. So that was quite interesting. So yesterday we were in one of our computer labs, and we were on to something which is very futuristic. And the teacher remarked that her niece, who's in class 12, she has not taken any tuition outside because she is learning herself from internet. So then a question came up yesterday, and there was a discussion. The discussion was, are the tuition teachers going to get extinct, go out of business, or the schools are going to go out of business? We do not know. Maybe some thought on that, some reflection on that.
You know, it's not a question of going extinct. Going extinct is a very sort of extreme step that nature takes. Most of the time, what does nature do? Nature evolves. So both teachers and schools, they need to evolve. The teacher towards, as I said, to move more towards the question than the answer. And, you know, in this country, I'm amazed that I need to even say that. Because 2,500 years ago, what did the Buddha say? The question is more important than the answer. 2,500 years ago. Similar thing from Socrates. I don't know the answer, I know the question. What did they do to him? Poisoned him. Okay. So, all right. So, evolve to the next.
Good evening, sir. This is not a question, but comment definitely. Thank you so very much. I mean, this was very much needed, refreshed, and I think all of us, the school heads, are now dealing with the school examination, board examination, the stereotypical things that we are doing. And listening to you was a great honor indeed, and I think all of us are really grateful. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know when the system will change, but I know it will change because it has to. You know, this thing about the Bluetooth earbud, what will you do next year? You'll have to install the MRI body scanner to put all the children through. So the internet will come in. And when the internet comes into the examination hall, the whole system will collapse.
Good evening, sir. That was...
Where are you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, sir, I mean, I'm just, echoing what ma'am said. This was a very refreshing talk. And my thought on this is, as I was listening to you, right now in India, we're talking about the NEP and the new changes that are coming in and all schools trying to comply with all of this. But what you have said today, now my thought is that from NEP, we have to take leaps to reach where you dream. So, I mean, this, what you said, the end of knowing and soul learning, that's even further more steps from what we are doing right now. So much more to do.
Of course, but nothing to stop you from when she was practically a little girl. So we know each other very well. And I told Vasudha that this is as far as you go. And she said, Sugata, this is as far as I dare to go. Okay, so her problem, that is a different ballgame. But, she has, it's a hard fight.
I just realized how far we have to go.
I know, absolutely.
So I am very lucky because we are heading the Montessori method. So ours completely echoes with what you all are doing. At every stage I could identify the self-learning, this is self-discovery, autocorrective methods, method and apparatus is used. So I think if all schools jump into the Montessori method, we have all our problems solved, where the teacher is just a passive observer who silently, like a scientist, is just watching what is the child doing and trying to find. And the answers come from the children, and the children move from one stage of development to the next with just the apparatus.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I think Montessori people everywhere agree with that. In fact, I'm a trustee on the Montessori network in Europe, and they're saying exactly what you're saying to say. And I said that you put it into another words, it's very simple. What would Montessori have done if the internet was there?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. It was so lovely listening to you.
Good evening, sir. Like listening to your presentation, I realized I have been doing this thing like quite a lot in my life actually. Like I didn't have a hole in the wall, but I had a phone in my pocket with an internet connection, and I've educated myself on various topics, and all of those were need based, or like at that time I wanted to know those things. So I can identify with your presentation, and it's a very important and a powerful tool to have an internet connection. One can know about anything, and Google nowadays is a go-to thing for, like, even if you want to know a meaning of a word, Google is the go-to thing, and I don't open a dictionary anymore. I just Google it and know the meaning of it. Absolutely. So I can very well identify with what you have presented.
Well, I mean, in this trip, I've been speaking at least 5 times with groups who wanted to know about Chat GPT.
Yeah, Chat GPT.
Chat GPT, you know, and everybody's so scared of Chat GPT. But you know, what I found was that nobody, like WhatsApp, nobody knows how it works. Chat GPT doesn't know this, Chat GPT doesn't know that. I said, but Chat GPT doesn't know anything. Do you know how Chat GPT works? What's inside it? You know, by the way, if you think that that's going to be very complex, it's easier to understand how Chat GPT's architecture is than it is to understand how a steam engine works. It's easier. You just have to unblock your mind and say, I'm going to read not just what Chat GPT said, but how is it built? What's inside it? If you do that, you'll find out not just that we have a long way to go, you'll find out what's next after that.
Thank you.
Right.
Good evening, sir. I was very taken up by your presentation. It was well spelled out, and actually I have been working with education for a few years, and the ideas that or the logistics or the methods that you have spoken about, I've been trying to articulate this in different ways. Well, I work with a very traditional set of schools, and yes, I faced a lot of resistance, but I'm still continuing. But I always felt that internet has to be a part of the curriculum, and there should be a time when there will be either no examinations, or we used to say, open book examinations, or examinations with the help of a device or a computer, which you have spelled it out very well. But what I realized that, you mentioned about Chat GPT, and this is going to come, whether we like it as educators or not. The students of the house, they already know the answer before you actually spell it out to them. They are doing all kinds of things and finding out things for you, because the education system that is prevalent today is not actually preparing us for the future. I had taken one session with some teachers, and I asked them that you say that we are we are making students for the future, but in every school diary there is a line that says you cannot bring mobile phones, you cannot bring a device to the school. So where every industry, every company is looking for expertise with the help of technology, I think our school leaders should think in the like and train students, which you have. I'm very thankful to listen to you today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I think we should close, but okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, just 2 more questions to take, and then we are, I think, about to wrap up.
Let me tell the teachers actually about what you can do. One of the things, very simple thing you can do with Chat GPT, if you want to be a hit with your older students, give them an essay to write, and write an essay on blah 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 blah, At the bottom in brackets write, use of ChatGPT is compulsory. Okay? So give them their phones back, let them write the whole thing. Once you've got it all back, then you say write a paragraph on what you would do to make it better. Okay? You would have beaten ChatGPT at its own game.
Good evening, sir. Can you see me?
Yeah.
This side.
Oh. Right.
This side.
Okay, right.
So that is a life skill again. You can hear where the sound is coming. So actually, I just had a question regarding experiential learning. You're talking about self-organized learning, definitely, with the usage of internet. But there are many schools across our country particularly, which are having maybe not that infrastructure, the digital infrastructure, yet our children have that potential in it. So do you think, like, if I have some topics or projects, for example, like I follow a very Socratic way of teaching in my school, where like we were giving students a question. We have these islands in the sectors, whether you go to Chandigarh or you go to Salt Lake. Have you ever thought that why is that island a circular one and not a hexagonal one or something? So then they started thinking. Now, if the same thing, if I take them out of the class in a setup of maybe a playground or something like that, and then we do the experiment and learn, you think the results will be the same as we go for?
Yeah, definitely the results will obviously be similar, but even more interesting is that you could take them out into the fields, into the playground, and give them an iPad, okay, and then see what happens. Okay, because now you can point your Android phone at things and say, what's that, what's the name of that flower, and so on. But, if you remember from my talk, 1 per 5 children, no more than that, so that they talk to each other. You do that you will learn a lot at the end of it, because they'll tell you things you've never heard before. Okay? So that's the way to do it, just mix the two together, instead of keeping them in 2 separate boxes.
Good evening, Dr. Mitra. You've always walked the talk, and today it was very interesting to really hear you talk. I just was looking up the .org. I just looked up on my phone too. So I was wondering whether schools could get, kind of into an association with this organization. Have you come across any schools in India doing this already?
Well, I don't know what exactly you mean by having an association, because Start Soul basically is like a tool for teachers. Mm-hmm. If you say, I want to do a soul, it will tell you what all you have to do, gives you a clock on the screen, helps you to make the big questions, classify the answers and so on. If you want to do it on an organization to organization basis, you need to write to them. I know the guy very well. His name is Jeff McClellan. Lives in Ohio. You could mention that.
I would like to do that, because we do use the devices for research, and as you said, telling them we don't know, you find out a lot in our school. Mm-hmm. So this is something that seems rather interesting and worth exploring. Thank you very much, and I will be working on this, perhaps getting in touch with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are closing this open house session right now here. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir, for this wonderful session. Please accept our sincere appreciation and gratitude for the wonderful presentation. Like all the good things which come to an end, we would now have to conclude today's session with a vote of thanks by our Secretary, Shri Jaideep Patwaji. Needless to say, this session and this day will be etched in gold in the history of S.P.K. Jain Futuristic Academy. I'd like to invite Shri Jaideep Patwaji.
Jai Jinendra, good evening everybody. I think the session was excellent, right? The crux of this session, there are certain points. What? That nature had given every child with a specific power to learn himself. That we are not observing, that we are not adopting. So what we have to do, we have to adapt. We have to observe that every child has a capacity to learn himself. I think that was the crux of the matter. Then, the next point, that we have to be futuristic. In education, we have to be futuristic. Because we don't know what will happen after 10 years, what will happen after 20 years. So we need to change our pedagogy. We cannot stick to an old driven pedagogy. So that need to be changed. So that's why we had started this school with futuristic approach, that we will change our pedagogy up to the need of the hour. That was the first point. And the second point, the earlier what I told, that self-learning. We will provide each and every child opportunity to learn himself. Because what a child needs for learning himself? Only three things. Only three things he needs. Number one, the freedom. Number two, the environment. And number three, the apparatus. If we provide them all these three, he can learn each and everything, whatever is needed in his life, in his curriculum, or in his syllabus. So now at last I will thank Dr. Mitra for sparing his valuable time. I will thank on behalf of SPK Jain Futuristic Academy and SS Jain Sabha each and every fraternity, education fraternity available here for sparing your valuable time, and I hope I will get your support always as today. Thanks.
Thank you, Jaideep sir. Can we have a huge round of applause for our eminent guest, Dr. Mitra? Thank you. Thank you all the guests for your active participation. We have arranged refreshments for you all, and please accept our warm hospitality. Thank you so much.
Because